Morning folks, afternoon folks, good evening folks. Today we're talking about Range Rover Classic Electrics. Oh yes, this is a 1993 Vogue. The problems I've been having are in this chunk of the loom, which is directly onto the positive terminal on the battery. Positive terminal, positive terminal. So the positive terminal on the battery on these cars has a direct connection straight to the starter motor, which then goes directly over to the alternator. That part of the circuit I'm fine. I've been through and I've created myself a marvellous map of all of the different cables, wires, which are highlighted here in the orange colour. So orange and blue, orange and yellow, orange and red, orange and brown, orange and pink, blah, 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 blah. And then underneath each one of those, going through the wiring diagrams, I've worked out what actually comes underneath each of those fusible links. So all fusible links, and they've actually got fusible link written on them, which are very, very tiny little things, look, compared to the cable that they're running through, which then go on. That was the ABS one, which I cut, because the ABS just was not working. I was getting 12 volts, but as soon as I put any load on it, it would die. So I need to tidy that up, because that was a get me home quick solution. Now I've thought about putting one of these in. This is a fusible link box out of a Discovery. Comes with all the cables and so forth on the bottom, because I want to have fusible links in it, but I don't want necessarily to replace the lot. But that said, there are only, in this bundle, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 cables. Thank you, gravity. Actually, no, that was more wind and gravity. We've got 9 different cables, and I know what each of those cables do, wires do, because of that. So I know roughly where I'm going to wire them onto this box. Some of them are just normal fuses, some are relay fuses. Sorry, fusible links. Now, if I pull this cover off here, pause. If I pull that cover off there, basically what we've got here is the feed from the battery comes in through this nice big chunky cable and goes to this terminal here, which goes through a 100 amp fusible link and then feeds these 4. Okay, so all these 4 go through that 100 amp fusible link. Now if I look at the inside of the cover, and it's exactly the same, this is Discovery, but it's exactly the same for Range Rover Soft Dash, which had a similar setup. So everything goes through the 100 amp alternator, but on the Classic non-soft dash, the alternator doesn't go through a fusible link that I've been able to find yet. It runs through a solid cable directly to the starter motor, which then runs around the bulkhead and directly onto that cable there, which runs to the back of the alternator. Yeah, nice big chunky fat cable, no fusible link. So I'm not particularly worried about putting that cable for the alternator onto there, although if I wanted to, I could cut this, put a loop on it and feed it onto there, and the starter and the alternator would then run through the 100 amp fusible link. But I'm not fussed about that for the time being. What I've then noticed is that and that. So the next 3 are heater aircon, the window lift and rear blower. What's the rear blower? Don't know. And lighting circuits. Then the one that's been causing me a problem over here is the ignition circuits and the ABS pump. And then over here we've got heated rear window, side lights, blah, blah, blah. But because on the Range Rover Classic it works slightly differently, I've had to be a little bit creative with the way I'm going to hook this all up. So I'm only going to leave that in place because it feeds the rest of the circuit. Not going to use it as far as the starter circuit is concerned. This one here I'm going to use, and I'm going to feed that into the blue, orange and blue, which I'll just double check I've got an orange and blue, and there he is, orange and blue. Okay, orange and blue. Then the next one, that one there, I'm going to feed into orange and yellow, which I should have there. Then I'm going to feed the next one into orange and red. Now, how many oranges and reds have I got here? I've only got 1 orange and red, which is good news. That's orange and grey. Okay, so orange and red, goes to that one. And then the one that's been causing me problems, orange and brown, which is, we've already identified that one earlier on. It is there, nice big chunky one. They're all going to get spliced in. Then I've got the ABS pump, which is orange and pink. Orange and pink. There, orange and pink. ABS, I know it's ABS because I've already separated that one out and fed directly off the battery without a fusible link some time ago. Which is when I decided to buy this box with the connectors on the bottom. If you don't buy it with the connectors on the bottom, you're going to have a struggle getting it to splice into your existing loom if you're retrofitting it or fitting it as a separate part. Now, these connectors do come off here. They are quite big chunky spades underneath there, So you probably could find that you could individually crimp on individual spade terminals, and it would probably fit. What I'm going to do there is I'm going to use butt connectors and heat shrink and splice them together that way. Right, when it comes to the little fuses down the left hand side here, from the top we've got heated rear window. Heated rear window, I've got orange and slate. Orange and slate grey, which is that one, orange and grey. So that will go to that fuse there. I'm not going to bother using side lights because that goes through a different fusible link. I'm not going to bother using the aircon fans because that goes through a different fusible link. This one down here is then hazards and horns, which matches up on the Range Rover diagram to the brown and purple. Sorry, brown and purple, what am I talking about? To the orange and blue. Do apologise there, orange and blue, because I'm looking at two different circuits here. So I've got two orange and blues. I wonder what I've got two orange and blues for. Well, I've got orange and blue on that one there. Pink, yellow, blue, so I've got two blues. So I've got one for heater aircon, and I've got one for... Okay, that's going to be a struggle, isn't it? So I've got two orange and blues, but they on here are going to the same fusible link. So if I look at the two orange and blues here, two orange and blues go in and they splice into a single fusible link. So I might do exactly the same thing and splice them both into the first fusible link here, which is the heater aircon. Covers the dash fuses, the heater aircon, the front aux lights, these fellas down here, the interior lamp, the interior aircon compressor, aircon condenser fan relay, but then also the dash fuse, hazard horns, sunroof and light washer. Okay, so I might ignore the 30 amp fuse down here. Then after that I have got one for the ABS valve, which is managed by another circuit, so I'm not going to worry about that. I have got the next one, which is orange light green. Orange light green, there he is, quite a thin one. Orange light green, he runs the driver's side fuse box under the driver's seat, the fuel pump fuse and the fuel injection fuse. All of this lot sits under the driver's seat, and it is currently sitting under a fuel pump on a 15 amp fuse. Might work, might not, I don't know. Fuel injection fuse is 20 amps though, so that might have to increase to a 30 amp, I don't know, I'll see, or 20 amp. I might have to look at that one. Then I've got the fuel injectors fuse down here, which is a 20 amp fuse, that one there. That's the bottom one there. And again, because the fuel injectors are run through the... Where's the fuel injectors? Why am I going mad here? Fuel injection is run through the injector relay. There we are, injection relay. And see why this is fun. Driver's fuse, fuel pump, injection fuse. I think I've decided I am going to use that one, orange light green. Injection fuse, and this one fuel injectors comes under the one before it. So that's 20 amp. What I'm going to do is I'm going to run it off that circuit. So I'll just swap the fuses around. So fuel injectors now runs this lot. So there we are, I've already spotted it. I shall move that whole chunk to run off the 20 amp fuse at the bottom there, which is good. And then last wire on the fusible link is the orange white, which should be a dead circuit because it's all for the air suspension. Okay, now on this, do I have anything for air suspension? No, I don't. So I'm just going to wire it into one of these circuits because I don't have any air suspension on this car, but I shall wire it into one of these and mark it up as air suspension. So next thing to do is to cut out the fusible link chunk. Now, what's the joint look like? The joint is just a rubber connector. Okay, it's just literally a joint like that. So much bravery has been encountered, and I've cut the 4, 6, 8, 9 wires. They're all cut roughly the right sort of length, and I have got the box and it's ready to be kind of mounted up there. The old fusible link, I've pulled the sock off it, and I'm going to cut this open a bit later on, and I'm just going to show you how these things are fused together and how they might fail. I guess we could also do some research on the actual fusible link itself and show you how they work, because we know that one failed. So perhaps we can investigate as to why that one failed. Okay, it would carry 12 volts, but it wouldn't carry any current whatsoever. Certainly not enough to run the ABS pump over there. So I've been down to Halfords because it's Sunday. I bought myself some incredibly expensive 35 amp flex fusible links. These are incredibly expensive because you buy them in packs of 4 or whatever. And I normally use a company called Vehicle Wiring Products. I'll put the link in the description. But the trick now is to position this roughly where I think it's going to go, line up the cables underneath with the cables in the loom, and splice them together using the butt connectors. Butt connectors. Crikey, am I going to say it again, aren't I? Butt connector. That screw can be done up because I'm not messing around with that one. And then once I've got it all working and I'm happy with it, then I will make up the mountings that support the bracket and support it onto the body so it's not bouncing around. Okay, it's just going to sit in that sort of region. Yeah, I think it'll work. Probably sit like that. Better check actually that the bonnet closes on it. But anyway, it doesn't matter at the moment, because I know that the earth cable will come through, and I know that that will go down and reach across to there, which is good. Let's tuck the earth cable out so it doesn't accidentally touch. So the earth cable will reach, and that will reach, and all I really need to do now is splice these cables together. So let me start working from the front and then sort of moving my way backwards through the various connectors, because what we've basically got here is the individual connectors. So what I can do is I can measure the front two, know which two I'm connecting those to. So there's a brown and pink and a brown and white from the disco box, which I know brown and pink is going to go to orange and blue, and brown and white is going to go to orange and yellow. So a little bit of fall planning is going to help. So done the first two, lined up the port with where it needs to go to, taken the port off the bottom of the box, trimmed the wires, crimped them together, tested them by giving them a good old yank. They're not going to come apart. I put a shrink wrap over that one. I forgot to put one over that one. What a pillock. Never mind, I can soon put some insulation tape and stuff around it, but I've got shrinky wrappy jobbies up here, and I'll just put one over the sleeve before I shrinky wrappy it all together. Right, so having done that one, I now need to measure up. So I'll put the connector back on the box and work with the next connector, which is this one, onto which I'm going to crimp 3. So I've got brown and purple, and brown and purple. That's so a short while later, basically all the connections are crimped in. The box sits there reasonably well. I'm going to have to put a tie wrap around it until I can get the mountings in place, and I am just going to connect up the negative terminal. First of all, what happens with the ignition when we turn it all on. Right, so coffee can stand there. Well, I've got power through, I can see that. Power's come through. Let's key. Is this then spectacularly dirty? No, it's just spectacularly sunny. Right, okay. ABS pumps on. The light's flashing because I haven't connected up the coolant tank. Just checking windows, blower, ABS. Yeah, aircon's working. Yeah, it's when you put the aircon on, the revs increase to accommodate when you turn it off. Rev drops slightly. That's all working. Turning everything on there. Lights on. 4 beams. Hazards. Fogs are on. What else can I? Widen all the windows down. They're all working. seems to be working. Right, that seems to be a job done then. So what I need to do now is find a way of just strapping this in. I'll just strap it around there, I think, just to hold it in place for the time being. I need to make a couple of brackets. But before I make up the brackets, I want to test the thing fully functions. So all the beams are on, lights are on, ABS is on, everything's working, LPG's on. I think it's a success. I think it is. Next I need to do this. I'll go into that in a minute. Bastard thing. Yeah, so fogs are on. I think really we need to sort of see how it performs, how it behaves. Well, it could well be a success. Let's turn everything off. So lights off, hazards off, ignition off. Right, okay. So yeah, just in case you didn't hear that, I'm going to just ratchet strap this in place for a moment. Gimbal. Right, okay, so let's have a quick look at this. So first and foremost, this was the wire that was misbehaving when it came to the ABS. So if I just pull this off, and I can already feel what the problem is, it's stretchy, which probably means that the connector has broken inside this. Why it was broken, I don't know. I suspect it's probably a fault which has existed. Let's just cut this off, 1 second. It's like that heat insulation stuff they put around this. One. Pull that off. There we go. Look inside that. That's all just corroded completely. So that's what happens with. It's not actually the link, the fusible link that's gone, as the connection in between it and the wire. And you can see the copper is completely corroded there. Hopefully you can see that. So that's the problem with these home-built connectors. You see I've just torn that out of there, and there's nothing in here because the fusible link has completely melted under the heat. Let's go back to a little bit further up the. See what it looks like. There we go. You can see what's burnt out there. So it's just a copper wire, it's copper strand, but because it's got high resistance because of a poor connection there, it's converted the current into heat.